Thank you for joining us. We have here a few of our doctoral candidates in the room and a few folks online. And I thought we should start with just a brief welcome and have you get to know who's here, and then we'll turn it over to you for your presentation. And I will make you a co-host, Oliver, just in case there's any screen sharing or...
Yes, I have a bit of a presentation, so excellent. Yeah, cool.
Awesome. Yes. Okay. So thank you all for coming, and thank you very much to our guest today, Oliver Fink, for joining us. This is a part of our Methods Monday series where we look at research methods in the peace and conflict resolution field. And today, Oliver Fink joins us to speak about analyzing the language of conflict transformation, natural language processing in peace and conflict studies. Oliver Fink is an SNF Research Fellow with the Herbert C. Kelman Institute for Interactive Conflict Transformation. He completed his PhD in conflict studies with the University of Basel, advised by Laurent Goetschel and Eran Halperin from Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And he works on the emotional and cognitive and social cognitive dimensions of political action and intergroup conflict using mixed methods, including natural language processing. And here we have with us in the room just a few folks. So I'll ask them to briefly say who they are and their names, and we'll ask the folks online to do the same so Oliver knows who he's speaking with.
Hello, thanks for meeting with us today. My name is Kyle Eggers. I'm a PhD candidate here. I'm working on domestic peace building in the United States and exploring the sense-making methodology combined with some futures work. And I'm very interested in the application of natural language processing to work with narrative and how that might help give peace builders somewhere to start.
Can you hear okay, Oliver?
Yeah.
Great.
Hi, my name is Audrey Williams. I am a PhD candidate. I'm also the lab manager for the Narrative Transformation Lab. I work on music and art and conflict transformation and very much with narrative approaches. So I'm very curious to hear what you have to tell us today. Thanks.
And I'm Susan Allen. I forgot to introduce myself. For those who don't know, I'm really pleased to host this session and excited to learn more from you, Oliver. If folks online could just say a quick hello and let Oliver know who you are if he doesn't know you.
Hi, Oliver. Jay Rothman. Good to see you again. And in terms of background, I'm also interested in the way that music and deep conflict intersect in constructive ways. And I've been working with Oliver and the Kelman Institute and Susan for decades on intransigent conflicts like those happening right now.
And I see we have Moses, a prospective PhD student and an assistant lecturer at the Public University in Kenya. Welcome, Moses. And anyone else who wants to say hello, feel free to do so now or just say hello in the chat as Moses has done. Okay, so Oliver, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very much looking forward to speaking to you today. Let me just check. Cool, excellent.
Big and visible here.
Good, good. So let's get started. Maybe, Susan, you could give me a nod when we are halfway through the presentation session.
Okay.
Because I don't have like a timer or anything.
Sure. Yep, we'll do so.
Good. So we are talking about language analysis and peace and conflict studies. And basically, the idea is a combination of two relatively simple assumptions that you see here on the screen. So the first one is obviously in politics, political conflict, language is normally the medium. Apart from, so there's also political violence, obviously, but before you hit each other, normally you shout at each other, you speak. And the other one, language analysis in general, is based on the understanding that the words we use are a symbol of our inner life. They encode our attention, our thoughts, our emotions, our cognitions. So they're like a glimpse into our inner life. So that is the essence. And now there is a problem with language, as my friend Johannes Eichstädt from Stanford uses to say. Language is weird. Language, the use of language, the use of words is very unevenly distributed, as you see here on these two screens. So some words they use a lot, and other words. Sorry. So words are very unevenly distributed. Some words are used a lot, other words are used very rarely, hardly at all. As you can see on the right graph, if we look at the cumulative frequency, less than 100 words out of a total, 10,000 to 30,000 words, less than 100 words are accounting for half of the cumulative frequency. And so these frequent words are mostly function words, and the rare words are content words. That's a distinction that will become important later on. So basically, most of the words, the bulk of the words are rare, except for some function words. If you think of like a very normal word like desk or mother, words that are used and are known in general by a fifth grader, English as a foreign language, it's highly likely that we will not use them in this session. So language is weird in the sense that it's very unevenly distributed. That is like a general principle that you have to take into account when you do language analysis. Now, what do you do with it? There are basically two types of methods that you're using when you do computer assisted language analysis. The first one on the left is the top-down approach. It's mostly called closed vocabulary approach. You can call it theory-based or predetermined or hand-driven. The idea is that someone comes up with a so-called dictionary or dictionaries. So you cluster words into categories. They could be based on linguistics, on grammar. You could say, I wanna put all pronouns or personal pronouns in a category. They could be, you could say, I want to account for past tense versus present versus future, or you can say, I want to cluster emotion words together into a dictionary. So what you get from these closed vocabulary approaches is dictionary counts. So you get numbers, normally percentages. Which percentage of words are used in this dictionary category. And if you will, the complete opposite to that are so-called bottom-up approaches, also called open vocabulary approaches, and they're completely data-driven. So you don't have any predetermined ideas on categories. You just look at the language, what the language gives you. Examples for this are topic modelings or just different types of word counts. And what you get is actual language, either words or word groups. To talk a little bit more in depth, so these closed versus open vocabulary approaches, they're almost like a continuum. with like these manual dictionaries that I mentioned on the left, and kind of these very open vocabulary lists of words or phrases on the right. And there are kind of some approaches that use elements of both. So to give you an example from such a manual dictionary, the most well-known, most important one is a program called Linguistic Inquiry and Word Count, called LIWC. What you can generate are these percentage lists. LIWC has about 90 different categories. Here you see an example of one such category, emotional tone. The scale with these is always like percentages, so number of words out of 100 words. And here, so this is a piece that we recently submitted to political psychology. We have two groups, Israeli and Palestinians, and we have an event. So we have a pre and a post measurement of language. And what you can see is that in terms of emotional tone, the two groups react very different to that event. There's no change at all in emotional tone with the Israelis, but quite a substantial change with the Palestinians. So they start very low, their emotional tone is very low, and then it increases almost fourfold. So that's an example of such a manual dictionary category. The other extreme are words and phrase lists. This is an example. So there's different types of frequencies or term types that you can use. It's a much wider coverage. It's pretty fine-grained information. You can also, extend these one-word lists to 2 or 3-word lists, but they're not as digestible. They're pretty long. So the original result of these word lists, it's like 1,000 words, pretty much all the words that are used in the type of data. So it's very cumbersome. And if you want to kind of make that a bit more handleable, you do topic modeling. It's also an open vocabulary approach, but there you cluster words, a few words, up to 20 words. You cluster them into groups. So it's also completely data-driven, but it's much more digestible than these long lists. But obviously, you lose some information. You try to decide on which words are the most important ones, which word clusters, how are they related, the most important words, but obviously you're losing a lot of data. To summarize this brief introduction, so language is really, really complicated and complex. So in that sense, all quantitative models are wrong, but depending on your research questions, some can be quite useful. This is not like an automatic click, and then everything happens. This is not like a magic wand. You still need humans. Also for the open vocabulary approaches like topic modeling, for example, you need to make some quite relevant decisions. So although it's computer assisted and quantitative, it's not completely like self-guided. In that sense, it augments humans. It's like it's a tool, it's a help. As you can guess, with these different approaches that I presented, there is no globally best method for automated text analysis. Ideally, you manage to combine some of them. And what you always have to do is validate your results, cross-check with other approaches. Why? Why is that the case? We said in these dictionaries, you know, these are examples from Luke 2015, you know, in these dictionaries, there are many words, you know, like negative emotions. You have like 500 words in positive emotions, 400 cognitive processes, you have 700. So these should be about right. Yeah. So let's check. Oops, what's happening? Let's check certainty, you know, words in that dictionary, in that category, like always and never. And it is about 80 words. But remember, language is weird. It's unevenly distributed. If we look out of these 82, all and never, they account for 50% of the frequency in your dictionary. And all and never, well, we can be pretty sure that they are indicators for certainty. But an example that we use here, so the word just is part of pretty every justice dictionary, but in everyday use, it's a filler word, you know, it has nothing to do with justice. You say, well, I was just a little late, or they just didn't let me talk. It has nothing to do with justice. So even if you have many words in your dictionaries, validate and check. So summary, language is weird. It's very unevenly distributed from 10 to 30,000 words after some cleaning. Less than 100 words account for half of the cumulative frequency. Non-function words make for really difficult units of analysis because they're hardly ever used by most people. And dictionaries obviously are quite some help, but you really need to check word frequencies carefully, validate them, ideally through annotation, meaning a classic qualitative analysis. So that is an overview, an introduction about natural language processing, different methods, different techniques of natural language processing. That was the one half of the session. And now I want to give you some examples from the material, from the narrative, from the project that I'm doing on Kelman's track 2 dialogue, unless they're pressing questions on these general natural language processing aspects. Anything?
One question here.
Yes, please.
Has there been any discussion of like the role of AI, and is that changing anything? Are there any ethical questions with that, just since it's of the moment?
Yes, there is a lot of stuff going on there in those in that aspects from very, very different angles. So we used, for example, AI to clean up our data. Some of our data was quite old. You see that in a second. So you can use it for that. But other groups, there's, for example, a research group at ETH Zurich, and they use natural language processing, for example, for automated decision-making processes, you know, like an automated judge. And obviously that has quite a strong ethical component. So it's quite broad. Most of the people that do natural language processing, you know, if you want to do some serious open vocabulary stuff, you need to have like a computer science background, you need to have some Python programming expertise. So most of the guys are computer people, and most of those, they see AI pretty positive. And it's probably more on certain user fields of AI where the ethical component is pushed forward stronger.
Thanks. Thanks, Oliver. I think that's it for questions at this stage.
Good. Excellent. Then let's dig into some examples. So I'm doing research on Kelman's track 2 dialogue. I assume pretty much every one of you is quite familiar with it. Just so methodically, we are combining closed and open vocabulary approaches, combining Luke with topic modeling, and we are also validating through qualitative analysis. Luke, when you look at it kind of the first time, it's pretty confusing, although it's quite a user-friendly program, I have to say. I really like it, but there's lots of measures, lots of dictionaries behind it. It's more than 90. Obviously, not all of them are interesting for us. So I downsized my readout to 60 to 70, and I'm mainly working with 20 to 30 that are interesting for the research questions that I have. You'll see some of them later. And from the sequence, so Kelman's approach he was mostly meeting like on a weekend from Friday evening to Sunday evening. And he approached, interactive problem solving in different phases. The Friday we'll ignore for most parts. They did some, introducing themselves and doing some situation analysis. And then on Saturday was the concerns and needs phase. And then on Sunday, the solutions and action phase. And so most of the graphs that you'll see are, Friday, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon. And so currently we're looking at 4 workshops as at critical conflict time points, over 30 years. So Lebanon War, Oslo Agreement, start of the Second Intifada, and Arab Spring. We have a corpus of about 150,000 words. It's over 500 PDF pages. And that's kind of the range and the quantity of stuff that we are looking at. And the most in-depth analysis, where we also have submitted an article, is the 99, just before the start of the Second Intifada. So we looked at that workshop really in depth. So here you have 2 things. You have the 4 so-called summary variables of Luke. And on the left, you have a couple of qualitative citations. So here, I want to spend a bit of time. So this is what you get from Luke. You get much more, but this is kind of the gist, the summary. And as I said, we analyzed Friday evening to Sunday afternoon. Now, what do you see here? It's 4 variables: analytic processes, cloud, energy, agency, the language of leadership, authenticity, vulnerability, and emotional tone. And the first thing that you see, which is kind of nice, because with track 2 dialogue, you want to change relationships, you want to change people. So emotional tone goes up. So people become much more positive in the Sunday session compared to the start and compared to the whole workshop. But there's some interesting stuff going on Saturday afternoon. So the language of leadership, cloud, energy, agency goes up a lot, and authenticity, vulnerability drops And what you basically have, it's the participants have, when you read up this stuff, the participants towards the end of the afternoon, they have a huge fight over the Palestinian needs that gets the Israelis really mad. And that's how it displays in Luke. So now let's validate with other variables, with other techniques. So from this summary variable, emotional tone, we have now two other readouts, single variables, single categories. You can see the percentages are a lot lower. And here we look at, on the left, positive versus negative emotions. And again, while negative emotions stay relatively, the same over the workshop, the positive emotions on Sunday afternoon, they increase. Completely different type of words, personal pronouns. We compare I, we, they use. So this positive emotions, we have kind of the red line on the right is the we use of the group, and that almost doubles over the workshop, which is a thing that is known from work groups, but it's not yet known from groups that discuss really, really difficult topics and fight with each other. But still, this feeling of we are one group, as indicated by the we use, increases. On the same lines, here we look at a bit more, let's say stable attitudes, motivations, pro-sociality, for example. And also here we see an increase of affiliation, so the same tendency as indicated by the we use. Power motivation decreases, pro-social motivation increases. So there seems to be something positive going on throughout this workshop. So that was an in-depth example of the closed vocabulary approaches with the Luke program. Now let's look at some open vocabulary stuff. And as I said, the most simple thing that you can do here is term frequency. Which words are used how often, which content words. So you kick out something that is called stop words. So the most frequent words like the or a or and that have no use by themselves. So here you look at content words. Term frequency is something quite, simple, but still there's some interesting stuff that you can look at. Just to give you a tiny little example, the word state in the concerns phase and in the solutions phase, so on Saturday and on Sunday, is used a lot more often than the word land. So you could assume that maybe in that conflict, land is quite a loaded binary term, kind of the promised land. It either belongs to me or it belongs to you. And state could be a more, easier to use. State can have all sorts of, kind of connotations and frames to it. So the participants decided to use state a lot more than this loaded word land. As I said, there's different types of open vocabulary word lists. So the term frequency is the most simple one. You can relativize it with the total number of words, which I haven't done in that list. Another interesting thing is the next column. It's called TF-IDF. So it's the term frequency relativized by the inverse document frequency. So it gives you an indication how unique the word use is for a certain subset of documents. So here we compare the two phases, either Saturday or Sunday, with the whole set of documents. And just to give you two examples here, the most frequent thing used in terms of TF-IDF is the question mark. So in this concern phase, we can assume that participants were quite open. They asked a lot of questions. They wanted to find out about the other side, about the other needs and concerns. If you look at personal pronouns, the other example, so here in the concerns phase, the most frequent personal pronoun is they. In the action and solutions phase, we and I is the most frequent personal pronoun. So they, did something, or they should, or they have to in the concerns phase. And in the solution action phase, we should and I will. So that are some examples that you can do with these open vocabulary word lists of different types. You can also do correlations. We can maybe have a look at that if you're interested in the questions. Otherwise, let's move on to topic modeling. Normally, topic modeling is complicated. There is one feature in the Loop program called meaning extraction model, and with that and some standard standard statistics program, you can do a bit of topic modeling. So with clustering the 20-25 most frequent content words, again for these two phases, needs and concerns phase versus solution action phase, and then doing a principal component analysis in your statistics program like JASP or SPSS, you can come up with a very simple form of topic modeling. So these are some word clusters, content word clusters. And for example, here you have, something in the concerns phase that you can almost, summarize, a big question is about the settlements and the right of return regarding the land. And then you can find a theme or a name for that topic. On the solutions phase, you have needs, Israelis, Jewish, trust. So you can maybe call it an important need for Jewish Israelis is trust. Obviously, that's relatively simple. When I come with that, my Stanford guys, they do much more elaborate stuff. Here are some word clouds derived by them. They can include many more words. They can pretty much include all of them, and statistically, it's much more powerful. But then you need strong computer science collaborations, which might be a very useful thing. And in the end, I just wanted to show you, kind of the gold standard is trying to combine open and closed vocabulary approaches. So just a little example how we do that. So here on the left, this is standard loop. We're again with a summary variable of emotional tone. We have our for workshop, and what we're looking at is the improvement of emotional tone. So the difference between Friday evening and Sunday afternoon. And you see that the workshops in 99 and 2011 were in that aspect more successful than 82 and 93 in terms of increase of emotional tone. So then we kind of did a split half and looked at, and you see that on the graph on the right, again, with Luke variables, you know, cognitive and motivational indicators. So we checked when or which indicators are higher in 99 and 2011 compared to 82 and 93. And two of them are the red lines, so the affiliation, which we saw already as a positive factor in the 99 workshop, and something cognitive variable that is called discrepancy thinking, which is words like could, should, you know, reaching out to something that is not there yet. So two factors that seem to be associated with more successful interactive problem-solving workshops. So this increase of affiliation combined with discrepancy thinking. And now you can come with your topic models and check which word clusters are, you know, associated with the more successful ones, which words are specifically associated with affiliation, discrepancy thinking, which themes and which are associated with these, if you will, less successful or less impressive workshops.
Oliver, if I could just note, we have 20 minutes left. So I just wanted to find that. Yeah.
Yes, I'm all through. Just to give you a couple of you know, literature hints if you want to read some more. So the creator of Luke, James Pennebaker, he wrote a brilliant, nice little edutainment book, The Secret Life of Pronouns. The more technical article is by Tauschik and Pennebaker on Luke, which type of studies have been done with Luke. Grimmer and Stewart is about natural language processing in like political psychology in general. It's really great. It's a bit mathematical. The simpler one is Boyd, with like the Boyd text I learned, open vocabulary, topic modeling. And then there's a nice text by our collaborator, Johannes Eichstädt, on how to combine and why to combine closed and open vocabulary data. And that's pretty much it from my side. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Oliver. Really, really fascinating. I'm really grateful for your presentation. Let's turn then to comments or questions from any of the participants here, including those of you online.
Well,
You first.
sure.
Yes.
Okay. Well, so one thing I'm wondering about this method is kind of what the unique, I guess, finding or insight that it would give you aside from, you know, just kind of scanning through the documents and getting a sense of the topics that are discussed. Because I mean, I think like, you know, in general, in the interactive problem solving workshop format, I mean, typically, you know, there are like different stages that the participants will go through, and then it'll end up with, you know, people seeing the problem in a different way. So I guess in terms of what you were hoping to find, was it just kind of validating that overall gut feeling with the type of language that was being used, or was there any other kind of, you know, particular insight you were hoping to gain?
Well, there's like different aspects here. So the one thing that I really like about open vocabulary data and kind of natural language processing in general is the aspect of quantifying language. So much of like track 2, but also other examples, similar techniques. The people that evaluated that, they mostly used case studies and qualitative data. And while that's great, there's a lot of quantitative researchers, like my PhD advisor. He would he would laugh at qualitative data and said, well, okay, nice, but kind of what's this about? So this is kind of the first thing that you can quantify impact. You can quantify like dialogue or other aspects of language. But the other thing that I find even more fascinating is, like, for example, for track 2, like one big focus point of what we're trying to achieve, in other kind of research areas that work with language, it's at some point they put quite some effort in, like, for example, in psychotherapy, they put quite some focus on coming up with common factors. What are like the impact factors? Which type of topics, which word use, which type of reactions, interactions is effective, like in psychotherapy? And one of the ideas that we want to try with track 2 data is kind of the same thing, kind of what is effective for a track 2 facilitator. What should they focus on? Which like topics to enhance, which topics to avoid? Like, for example, this fight in this 99 workshop, was that good? Did that clean the air? Apparently, yeah, the impacts on relationship was quite positive. So the facilitators decided to let that go, but maybe that was a mistake. Maybe they should have like stopped the fight, and that is the kind of stuff that we want to find out with natural language processing. But obviously, there's, depending on your data and your research questions, there's a lot of stuff that you can dig up. Another thing that I really find interesting, when it comes to, for example, moral decision making, much of that research is, like, if you will, artificial, lab research, kind of the trolley problem, would you kill one or would you kill, like completely hypothetical. And here you can, with the help of, for example, moral foundations dictionaries, you can try to, quantify life, real life situations and real life decisions. Sorry, that was a very long answer. There's another question from Billy.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation. First of all, I'd like to say that I think this kind of methodology is very useful, and we can be able to use it, for example, in perhaps in trying to understand, the early warning signs of conflict, especially today in the era of social media and stuff like this. We can be able to make analysis and perhaps discover the potential escalations by monitoring things like online escalations. And that said, I was thinking about what could be the potential limitations for this technique, especially in trying to understand the nuances of language, things like humor, and also the cultural context in conflict resolution.
Yes, that's a very important point. So one part of the answer is what we discussed already in the presentation, and that's kind of validation. Kind of use different types of approaches, maybe even do like split half validations of your data corpus. use qualitative techniques. That's what we did a lot to like really check if your language models really get the gist. As I said, language is quite complex. As you said, it's quite contextual. So remember how we like compared these different contexts, you know, a thing that I haven't presented here. We, for example, compared the more conciliatory context, you know, kind of time of the Oslo Agreement, with like the more escalatory contexts, you know, like 82, the Lebanon War, or kind of the Second Intifada type of data. So compare contexts. And there's one more thing that I wanted to say, but I forgot. So what was that? There was one important thing from your question.
Did you want to comment on the early warning use idea?
No, it was not that, but please comment from your side if there's something interesting here.
Well, I was interested in the early warning usage idea that Billy, you know, suggested. And I'm wondering if you could kind of step back a bit and say kind of overall, what kinds of questions can this approach be helpful with? Is there a way to kind of go a little meta on this a bit and say, okay, if your question is around what types of questions can this methodology help with? Is that too big a question?
Yeah, so it's pretty broad.
Yeah.
It's pretty broad. I mean, there is already kind of, you know, kind of in these event coding, you know, they did some early warning stuff, you know, kind of they try to also with like computerized methods, you know, like map interactions and then see, you know, kind of are there early warning indicators. So this is like really broad. The thing is, you need some form of like good and meaningful language data. Some of the natural language processing stuff is pretty like gadgety, you know, kind of comparing like 2 million tweets on whatever type of stuff. And also for our field, track 2, it's difficult to get good data. You know, much of that is like secret back channel stuff. People are pretty mum about like being on the record. So often you don't have good data which you need for, and you also need certain quantities for natural language processing. So that might be quite a limitation. But in general, as long as you have something with language, you know, kind of that people also analyzed manifestos. Pennebaker, he analyzed kind of the communication of Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda. So there's all sorts of stuff that you can do with language. There are projects they analyze speeches. Obviously, you know, kind of as Billy said, kind of the whole social media side, kind of commenting on conflict events. It's really broad. It's
thank
really
you.
broad.
Audrey here has a question.
Yeah, my question goes to practice. You mentioned, for example, when you were looking at these the dialogues, that okay, what would have happened if they had tried to stop the fight, right? And then that finding that, you know, you get more of an instance of we by the end of it. What do you do with that? What kind of pathway is there between getting a finding like that and then kind of going into these types of situations and helping facilitators? Like what should facilitators do with that data, basically to help them do their job in a more generative way?
Yeah. So kind of the we increase is interesting in that sense, as I said. So we know that like from work groups, you know, that this kind of the coherence and kind of the feeling, hey, we should be kind of sticking together, and this, you know, kind of this standard group dynamics, that this happens. But so far we did not know that for, you know, kind of track 2 stuff where people come with like very opposing views on pretty much everything, and fights like the one that I described happen. So we did not know that despite this opposition in the group that is built in from the method, that such an effect happens, and that this kind of we had hints, but we did not have the proof. But in terms of finding, like for a facilitator for future workshops, that's kind of nice to know, something that he could rely on. But that is for us more kind of the, if you will, that dependent variable that shows us the impact that the workshop has. And in terms of stuff that the facilitator should focus on, you know, kind of these cognitive parts, for example, the discrepancy thinking and some other stuff are more valuable insights for them. Although you could still think, if you think like a normal moderator facilitator behavior, you could try to increase that. You know, kind of there are all sorts of gadgety exercises to increase this we feeling and this affiliation, you know, that they do in the Harvard negotiation program, and so on. So that is something that the facilitator could use. And for example, Kelman, one thing that he did always on, I think it was Saturday evening, the groups always had a nice dinner with their spouses, where we don't have any records of, but maybe that was the whole effect, and not the discussion. Maybe that did the trick on the we use. Who knows?
Well, we just have a moment. I don't know if there's anything you want to circle back to, or any other comments you want to make, Oliver, before we conclude.
No, I think that was pretty much it. It would be great to stay in touch. If there's any more questions, don't hesitate to mail me. If you have specific questions, Luke is pretty straightforward. Try it out. There's another interesting text mining program. It's completely so Luke doesn't cost much. It's like 60 or 70 bucks for an annual license. You can try it out. You can fiddle around with like small data sets, 500 words, and you get like 10 variables. There's another interesting text mining program that is more geared towards open vocabulary approaches. It's called Orange Data Mining. Check that out. I used that a lot in the beginning. Now, not that much anymore. Now I can rely on my Stanford collaborators for the open vocabulary topic modeling. And there's, but as I said, there's some little stuff that you can do with Luke 22 and the meaning extraction model. You know, kind of dip your toe in the water of topic modeling. I think that's yeah. So feel free kind of to try that out and fiddle around a bit with it. And when you have questions, don't hesitate to get in touch.
Well, thank you so much, Oliver. I really, really appreciate this, and appreciate that we were able to record the session so that others will be able to learn from this who couldn't make it today. And I wish you all the best with the work you're doing. I look forward to reading more of the insights.
Thank you very much. It was a true pleasure. Take care, you guys.